Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful and the most beneficent. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. A very good morning to everyone and a hearty welcome to the students of class 7. My dear students, listeners and viewers, you surely would have seen the first video of the lesson about writing a narrative essay. If you remember the topic, it was if time travel was possible. So what would you do at that time? Did you like the topic? Or really? Did you find it really interesting? Okay, I enjoyed that too. But what about others? You had some problems. You got stuck in choosing a tense, and it was hard for you to develop the structure of the narrative essay. Okay, don't worry at all. That's why here I am, to help you out, to make you sort out your grammatical issues, improve the presentation of your ideas, and create a wonderful piece of writing. So gear up and let's start. First of all, go through all the points I have given in the checklist. Definitely, it's a hard task to learn something, but fruit is always sweet of the bitter labor. Okay, here I have given a short list of the requirements for a good creative writing. Keep in mind that all the good writers focus on these points. First of all, when you will start writing, your purpose should be to hook the reader, and you can do this by applying few tricks and techniques. You can begin your writing by putting some question, by giving a clear and vivid description of something, by adding some sounds, by introducing your idea by interesting facts, and with a dialogue also. All of your ideas you have to brainstorm in your mind and write in a form of draft in the form of paragraphs. Use correct capitalization and punctuation marks. Use adjectives, sentence starters, transitive words, adverbs that will add color to your creative writing. And don't forget to use some wow words, as well as you just remember that you don't have to tell the reader. You have to show. And that command on your way of writing or your writing skill, it will show that how much mature as a writer you are. You can use some conversation, but not a very long one. You can vary the sentence beginning. You can change the structure of the sentence. If you remember that we have already practiced the pre-modifiers and post-modifiers, that was actually the purpose behind of introducing that topic and learning that concept, that you can introduce and write different structures of sentences. Use figurative language. Now, figurative language is the best tool for a wonderful writer. By adding similes, metaphor, personification, alliterations, and onomatopoeia, you can give a wonderful touch to your writing. Now, in detail, we are going to discuss writing hooks. Now, good writers start with a dialogue. Now, what is a dialogue? It's a conversation between two people with which you can start writing, thinking. Either you can start your first paragraph with a thought in your mind or with the thought of some other person. By adding the sound, like something is happening in the environment where you are standing, question, by asking some question, or by adding some action. Something is happening and you start from that. Now let me give you a boring example of telling. My name is Kate. Let me tell you about the time I went to a haunted house. Now this is a simple statement without any hook to grab the attention of the reader. Now look at this exciting example. My hands trembled as I opened the creaky old door of the deserted house. Now, what has played the magic here? By the addition of some strong verbs and the addition of adjectives like creaky, deserted, and trembled. These words have added a color to this sentence, and the reader will have a clear picture in his mind. This is called showing and not telling. Let's have some more bold beginnings for your ease, because we have to bring writing to life. It should not be a very flat, a very boring piece of writing. It must have something very interesting. Like, we can start the beginning of the paragraph by stating a belief and then explain why you believe it. For example, you can start with your opinion. The school cafeteria should offer pepperoni pizza every day. This is your personal opinion, and you can have it in the very beginning if you want to. Use a single word and then provide more information. Pickles, 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 they were everywhere. Now, this kind of repetition adds a very, you can say, rhyming sort of effect on the ears of the reader. Next one is share an interesting fact and then tell more about it. That you first state the scientific fact, and something there should be very interesting for the reader in it. The bumblebee bat is the smallest mammal on earth. Now, definitely that has something very interesting in it. You can capture the attention of the reader by grabbing a moment of time and then elaborate. You were right at the top of the rickety roller coaster and started down over the hill. Now, if you imagine yourself at the top of that ride, and suddenly you have to assume that you are going to move down, so definitely you are going to enjoy reading that thing. Describe a sound and then tell where it came from. Snap, crackle, crunch. Something heavy is lurking in the woods. Now, from the very beginning, there is a spooky feeling in this sentence, and if you will write such sentence, you will not be able to lose the attention of the reader. Ask an interesting question and then provide an answer. Have you ever wondered how many dogs you can walk at one time? Now, this is an interesting question, and you can. These are not only the few tools with which you can start the beginning. You can also start from a quotation. You can also start the first paragraph by some general truth or a philosophical idea, because it's a narrative essay. You must have something special in your mind which you want to introduce, and you can write it in your narrative essay. Now, stretch a sentence. That is very important. Don't take it so easy that writing a sentence is not a simple job. You must have the command on the words, and that's why I have discussed the ideas, the concept which you have to brainstorm in your mind before putting them on the paper. So first of all, just remember that WH question words are very important for you to write a good sentence. Who, what, when, where, why. These all words add spice and color to your writing. For example, if we start from the first line, a cloud, we are talking about who? Whom? A cloud. What is it doing? A cloud makes raindrops. When was it making raindrops? This morning, a cloud made raindrops. Now you have added some time, and if you add the place by adding the where question word, this morning a cloud made raindrops at my house. Why? Now this purpose is written in the next line. This morning a cloud made raindrops at my house because there was a thunderstorm. Now this is quite an interesting sentence. instead of simply stating, today it rained heavily. What do you think? Which one is interesting one? Definitely the first one. This morning, a cloud made raindrops at my house because there was a thunderstorm. Because all these who, what, when, where, why details give a vivid picture, a clear picture to the reader to imagine in his mind. Let's have some other example. We stood outside for 20 minutes. Now, this is simple without any color or without any further detail. You cannot imagine where he stood, what did he do while standing outside there, outside what. You have no idea. So, when we will add some adjectives or in the different WH question words, it will definitely give a very clear picture to understand the statement. From the first one, I will start reading. We stood outside for 20 miserable minutes. Now, this miserable minutes tell us the mood of the writer, that while he was standing there, he was not enjoying the waiting over there. If we add when, this morning, we stood outside for 20 miserable minutes, that he is talking about the exact day, the time. Now, where, this morning, we stood on the sidewalk in front of the school for 20 miserable minutes. Now, we have added the place and we have come to understand that what was the reason for his boredom and why was he feeling miserable, because he was standing waiting outside the school. Now, how this morning we stood shivering because he was feeling cold on a snow-covered sidewalk in front of the school for 20 miserable minutes. So, reader will be able to understand that for such a long time on the snow-covered sidewalk, it was really hard for the writer to stand and wait for such a long time. And why was he standing there? This morning, we stood shivering on a snow-covered sidewalk in front of the school for 20 miserable minutes while the fire chief investigated the cause of the fire alarm. So that is the sort of writing I want all of you to write, with all the details, with all the adjectives, adverbs, and obviously the sensory details also. Now, when you will be able to stretch a sentence according to the requirement, you will start writing a paragraph. Now, we must be clear that what is a paragraph and what do I want from you if you ask to write a good paragraph. A paragraph is made up of sentences. A paragraph should have at least 5 sentences. A paragraph has a topic sentence. Each sentence relates to a single idea about the main topic. Paragraphs explain or describe something. A paragraph has a topic sentence, supporting sentence, and a concluding sentence. Now, these are the 3 prerequisites for writing a good paragraph, and let's discuss them in detail now. Anyone can write a paragraph, but writing a good paragraph must have these following important points. Number 1, the topic sentence. It's not a new concept for you. In class 6, you have already done hundreds of practices regarding this topic, and you know that how to write a topic sentence. It is the first sentence of the paragraph that introduces the topic. Now, you all know that first impression is the last impression. So far, if you'll write the first sentence in a very hooking manner, in a very attractive way, the reader will not leave your writing unless he or she starts reading from the first paragraph and moves on to the last line. So the first sentence of the paragraph that introduces the topic must be a very captivating one. Now, the supporting sentences. Now, the supporting sentences, as is clear from the name, they support, they help, and they add meaning to the topic sentence. These sentences are used to support the main ideas stated in the topic sentence. Now, to join these topic and supporting sentences, to combine the ideas or concepts mentioned in both these type of sentences, we need transitional words. Using transitional words between sentences builds the unity and clarity of paragraph. This is the purpose behind using them. And you know that what are transitional words, which we also call transitory words, or we call them connectives, and they can be adverb of time, like that. Now, the concluding sentence, as the name shows, that you have to sum up the idea of that paragraph. This is usually the last sentence of your paragraph that sums up what the topic sentence and the supporting details talk about. Now, this also should be a very interesting one. Now, when you have learned to write a good paragraph by stretching a good sentence, you must use strong verbs. And remember that said is dead. It's really very important. The purpose to give this picture in front of you is to remind you. I know you already know that we have practiced these things, that we must use the synonyms of the words. Not only said about any other verb, especially because the good writers not only use adjectives and adverbs, their verbs are also very strong, and that gives them a scholarly touch. So for that purpose, you must have a thesaurus, and now these are modern days. We can search on the internet, on the mobile cell phones, that you can find many synonyms from the thesaurus, and if you find them difficult, use some dictionary to find out the meanings. So instead of writing dead words like said, good, bad, sad, happy, try to use some interesting vocabulary. Next comes adding details. Now, good writers use their senses to add lots of details so the reader can visualize what's happening in the story. Now, what is the main word in this sentence? Visualize. And this is the thing that we add different techniques, tools, and ideas to make the writing such a piece of writing that the reader can visualize, and you can show the reader what is going on in your mind. And you don't have to tell that in simple and boring way. So sensory detail is one more technique for a good writer to help in writing. Now, Allah Almighty has given us 5 basic senses of sight, touch, taste, hearing, and smell. Now, how can we use all these senses for creating something? Describe how it looked. By using the sense of sight, we can tell the size, color, and shape of something. Describe how it felt. By touching, we can feel the texture, temperature, and also we can understand the weight of that thing. Describe how it tasted. Was that something sweet, salty, sour, or a bit or bitter? Now, by hearing, describe how it sounded. People talking, singing, background noises, onomatopoeia. Here we can apply the technique of onomatopoeia. Describe how it smelled. Was that thing fruity, buttery, flowery, or any other smell you can imagine? Now, we will discuss in detail sensory details. The first one is about eyesight. You see something like the socks were on the floor. This is a very simple sentence. How can we make it more interesting by adding some adjectives? The muddy socks were piled on top of the rug. I want to tell you something, that when we use the sensory details, that leads to use the descriptive words. And descriptive words are adjectives. And adjectives are always used with some nouns. And this whole thing brings a kind of network by using all these details. Now, the muddy socks were piled on top of the rug. The adjective muddy is quite clear instead of writing only the socks. Now, second one is about sound. The plane flew over. And if you say the buzzing sound filled the air, the listener or reader will be definitely clear that the writer is talking about the plane, and that will give a better and vivid picture. Now let's talk about the sense of touch. The mud was gross. The mud felt slippery and cold between my toes. Now, taste. The pizza was crunchy. The pizza tasted like cardboard. Now, here you have used a simile, and that makes a very clear feeling of taste, that how the pizza felt like. Now, about smell. Her perfume smelled good. Now, good is a very dead word. Instead of writing good, you must write something more interesting. Her perfume smelled like flowers and vanilla. Here again, the writer has used a simile, and we can have a very wonderful picture of the writer's intention. Figurative language is another tool for a good writer. When words mean something other than their literal meaning. We have already done many of these figurative language like simile, personification, alliteration, metaphor, hyperbole, and onomatopoeia. We in other classes and in the 7th class also we have practiced all these topics. Simile is a comparison using like or as, and personification is a technique in which an animal or object is given the qualities of a human, like talking, eating, walking, showing happiness, or showing anger. And we have an example here. The stars danced in the night. Obviously, stars don't dance. This is what we call it a figurative language, when words mean something other than their literal meaning. Next one is alliteration. First sounds repeat. Dexter was digging deep down in the dirt. Now this one is my very favorite one, because this D sound gives a very poetical and rhyming effect. But if you find it hard, you may leave it. You have to be very adept in doing all these things. Metaphor compares without using like or as. Iris heart is made of gold. Now that is a direct comparison without the use of the words like and as. Hyperbole. This is something new for you, but that will be a new learning for you. Extreme exaggeration. Exaggeration means that instead of its original feeling or size of something, you enhance that thing. You, to its excess, add the something more to it. Like this example says, I have been waiting forever. This thing of this juxtaposition of waiting forever words tells the writer has been waiting for such a long time. This is exaggeration. Now, onomatopoeia, sound words. Woof, buzz, ding, beep. These words add a very interesting effect to your writing, that that the reader feels that he himself is existing in the same atmosphere where the writer is. Idioms also have very important part in writings. These are phrases that do not mean exactly what they say. We have already done contemporary idioms, a long list. I remember that we discussed the use of these idioms with their meanings in class 7, and you people are definitely will be remembering and have the previous list. But for your ease, I have brought few more. Hit the hay, go to bed, eat crow, to have to admit that you made a mistake. Pie in the sky, something you hope will happen but is very unlikely. Buy a lemon. To buy something that doesn't work well usually refers to cars. A couch potato. Similarly, the list goes on. You can read that and use for your better writing. Now, this is very interesting thing. Useful and effective transitions, the connectives and the transitory words. Addition, consequence, conclusion. Emphasis, sequence, illustration, exception, comparison, contrast. Now, these are the different points which will help you to write the pros and cons of your idea. Pros and cons means in favor of your ideas or the against of your idea, whatever you are thinking to write about. But remember that in the word addition, furthermore, in addition, will never come in the very beginning, the first paragraph. This is a common error that occurs in the writings of our students, that they write in the very beginning in addition, where they are introducing the topic. In addition comes when you have already mentioned something, there is an idea existing previously, and you want to a little bit something more add to it. So you can add or write this connective where you are already given something, and in the second or third paragraph, it would be good for you to add this thing. Consequence. In the second, third, or fourth paragraph, you can add this to show the consequence, to make a connection between the paragraphs or the ideas in the same paragraph. You can have these words. Concluding. Then you are trying to sum up your idea in, in the concluding sentence of one paragraph, or when you want to summarize in the conclusion of the whole creative writing, that will be a great help for you if you add some of these words. If you want to lay emphasis, if you want to glorify some fact, if you want to highlight something, you can add these adverbs over here, like especially, particularly, for instance, specifically. So this will grab the attention of the reader also, that the writer wants something good about. Sequence. To tell the sequence of the ideas, it's really very, very important to add few of these words, like at first, first of all, to begin with, to commence, at the same time, meanwhile, next, then, and the list goes on. So you have a long list, and you can select any of these according to your writing. When you want to give some example, or you illustrate a fact or some idea, you can use these words. For instance, in this case, like this. Exception. For exception, you can write aside from, beside, except. When you want to compare some ideas or concepts or two things, you can say similarly, in comparison, likewise, also. And if you want to go against that idea, contrast, instead, yet, however, nevertheless, no one, on other hand, on the contrary. I hope it will be very helpful for you. Now, with all these spices, colors, tools, and techniques for the brainstorming and your first draft, now comes the narrative structure. Now, this is the required thing at the end we want to have in your work. We have discussed the beginning. You had to hook or grab the reader's attention. You have described the setting. Now, what is setting? Setting is something where the story is existing. Now, actually, you are not writing exactly the story. You are imagining it. And what is the topic? What if time travel was possible? So, your setting from the very beginning can be this Earth, this year 2020, and from there you can select where you are going to travel through the past in the history, or are you going to take a plunge into the future in the next 20, 30 years. So that would be your setting, the place. And you have to introduce the story characters. And in this narrative writing of time traveling, definitely the main character is you yourself, and all the action is going to move about yourself. And you can also add some other character that can be a character which you want to meet there. Now, jumping to the middle part, you have to use the senses to create atmosphere. We have already discussed in a lot of detail the sensory details, and you have to include action. Now you're moving from one world to other times of traveling or the future. You can add some action here, and you have to introduce a problem or event. Now this is very important, that unless you introduce a problem or event here, or a series of event, or a couple of events here, the writing will not become an interesting one, because that is the point, that curiosity kills the cat. That unless you made your reader curious about what will happen next, you will not be able to grab the attention, and you will not be able to write in a good way. And after that, we will come to ending. But before that, I want to discuss the tense of this creative writing. What do you think? What would be the tense? In which time will you write? The present, past, or future? Now, when we will start writing, as we are existing over here, in the introduction, we can say that if we are starting from a general fact, we can start from the simple present tense, that many efforts have been made, or the science fiction movies have been picturized about this concept. So you can say that it can be written in simple present tense. Then again, if your idea is that if time travel was possible, I would like. Now, this thing is not for sure that you will be able to do it. So here we will write in a future possibility, or in a tense of possibility, I would like to do this thing if this will happen. And when you will go there, then definitely you will write in future tense, because something that is happening in forward of this present times, either whether it is happening in the past, that is not happening right now. So you will use the future tense, that I will meet my grandfather who died in year 1965. So definitely you are going to write in future tense. Or if you want to write about your 80th birthday, wow, 80th birthday, many decades after this year. So obviously you are again going to use the future tense. So you can revise all the necessary points for writing all these different tenses, and then it will lead towards the ending. Now you have to try to resolve the problem you faced at that time, and that will be a very good thing if you resolve the problem, because it will satiate a good reader, satisfy a good reader's desire that what will happen next. I have used powerful verbs and adjectives. Obviously you will write powerful words and adjectives, because I've given a number of words, and you all are very good writers. And you have to include a dialogue, and this should not be a long one, but only a few dialogues. And when you will be writing these dialogues, don't forget to put the correct punctuation marks, the speech marks. That's really very important. Now, types of narrative closings. This is the point I want to discuss in detail, because as far as the beginning of the creative writing is really very important, similarly, the ending is really very important. That we can start from feeling or emotion, that your last paragraph can be like this. The author tells how they felt or how a character felt at the end. In the end, I felt so happy. It's up to you whether you felt really happy or not. Next is open-ended. The author finishes the story with an open-ended ending or cliffhanger that leaves the reader with more questions. Now, mature writers mostly use this technique, and it's really very interesting that you leave the reader with some questions, and it's up to the reader to conceive the idea that what the writer intended to write. You can add a quote or a dialogue. The author either ends with a well-known quote, a quotation, a famous saying of some famous person, or meaningful dialogue between characters in the story. Next comes aha moment. Now, aha moment is very interesting uh, for the ages, teenagers especially. Finally, everything comes together for the reader and all of their questions are answered. Now, that is very a satisfying end. Next comes reflection or lesson. Now, reflection is a thought, a very good thought, a thoughtful ending with some lesson, a resolution that whatever the problem was going on in the middle part in different paragraphs, it has come to an end. Now, the author tells something that the narrator or a character learned in the story. Next is surprise or twist. Now, this is about curiosity, a curious reader. The author shocks the reader with an ending they never would have expected to happen. At the end, we have circular ending. The story does a full circle in that the ending connects back to events from the beginning of the story. Another one is glimpse into the future. The author ends by hinting at what will happen to the characters in the future. Now, if you turn and twist this last one, it can be very helpful for you because many physics law are still working about the possibility of future traveling. So you can twist and turn and according to your own will write the end, whether it will be possible or not. I hope this will be helpful for you. And last but not the least, writing checklist. A good reader always filters all the things that has been written. So it's really very important for a good writer to check all these points that start from the capital letter at the beginning of a sentence. You must use finger spaces and use ending with punctuation. The question mark at the end of interrogative sentence, the period at the end of a full simple statement, an exclamation mark showing some emotions at the end of exclamatory sentence. Using the word wall to help you spell. Now, spellings are really very important for you because a good writer never makes mistake in spellings. And you can get the help as you did in your early classes from the word wall. The word wall can help you a lot, but as you are grown up, you can use the dictionary as well and start learning the longer and the difficult spellings, and there must be no spelling mistake at all. Now, at the end, I would only like to say that be a light for all to see. These are hard times, and whatever we have gained, we must share with them, either in the form of information or knowledge. So, try to help your siblings and other fellows that if they are unable to understand something, you are there to help them out. Thank you so much. I hope this video will be very good for you and you will be able to write a good creative writing. See you soon.